Hello and welcome in, friends, to a very special breaking news edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your night. That is right, Marcus Stroman is a Chicago Cub. We need to talk about it. The Cubs wait till almost the very last minute before the lockout begins, and they got themselves a brand new starting pitcher over in the north side of Chicago. We're going to get to that in 1 second. Please do us a huge favor. Follow us all over the universe. You can be interactive with the show on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. Be interactive with the Sunday Sports Show here on Chicago on WCPT 820, the Sports Cubicle, by following us on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. Like, rate, review, and share us wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. And check out the video version of the podcast over on YouTube at Mercado Airwaves Network. Please like and subscribe to us over there. Hit that little bell to be notified every single time we upload a brand new episode. We're also on Roku. Shout out to Jerry Riles and the Rewind Sports 60. Check out every single episode of the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch. That's at the Rewind Sports 60. Let's get right into this. The Cubs make them an active team this offseason, right as we get up to the last hours, as the pending lockout of MLB is upon us, and this comes from Jeff Passan. Marcus Stroman signed a 3-year, $71 million contract with the Chicago Cubs that includes an opt-out after the second season, sources tell ESPN. He'll make $25 million in 2022, $25 million in 2023, and $21 million in 2024. It includes $2 million escalators for 160 innings pitched in 2022 and 2023. Jeff Passan also then tweeted out, Stroman can essentially make Justin Verlander money 2 years, $50 million in the first 2 years of the deal, and then opt out after the second and hit free agency at 32 years old. With escalators at $2 million a year, if he hits 160 innings pitched each year, he'd get $25 million in all 3 seasons. And I think for a lot of Cub fans, it signifies a lot of different things. And I think that's what we wanted to do on this little special edition of Sports from the Couch. We kind of just wanted to get on here and just going to chit-chat a little bit about what does this move mean? And how does it impact the Cubs now? And how does it impact the Cubs moving forward? And with this pending lockout that is just a few hours away as we are recording this on Wednesday nights here in Chicago, it does raise a couple questions. It does make you raise your eyebrow. They have made moves at catcher. They did bring in another outfielder. Like, they have made moves, right? And we'll talk all about that on Sunday on the Sports Cubicle with Dan Marver, Devin Tingle, Paul Shivari, and myself. That's 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. on WCPT 820 AM Chicago. So they've made moves. But a lot of these moves were essentially, they look like a rebuilding type of thing, or you're going to flip somebody later. This seems like a move that it's stabilizing your retooling, your rebuilding, and also kind of maybe escalating or changing up the clock, or what you deemed was going to be the countdown to the new start of whatever the window is going to be. So what is this signing in the long term for the Cubs? What does it mean? Because I think if we're honest with ourselves, it's a wonderful signing. It's a great deal. It's a guy that has a lot of different weapons. He gets a lot of outs by contact. He's a good pitcher. He's played in big markets. He's somebody that gets a lot of swing and misses. So if you put a good defense behind him, he's going to get you outs. And he's going to pitch a lot of innings. He's very durable. You know, you're not getting one of these guys that's just relying on the pure strength or the pure fireball that some of these young dudes kind of have and they kind of rely on. And I think this is a stabilizing move. It changes up your rotation a little bit. And, you know, when you really start looking in detail what this rotation is starting to look like a little bit, it's pretty impressive. You know, and obviously, you know, the regular names like a Kyle Hendricks. But when the season's going to be kicking off, I think that's going to be a lot of things that Cub fans are going to be looking at, is those little breadcrumbs of what could be a retooling or what could be the direction your team is going on. But I think we also have to cool our jets just a little bit. Just as instant reactions, I think it's a wonderful move. It's great to see them being active. But this Cubs team still isn't good, per se, right? Like, this Cubs team isn't winning the NL Central as is. Like, they are now a more interesting team because they did go out there and go get a pitcher. And not just a pitcher, but a good one. Somebody that was out there that was coveted. But what do you do then? What's next? You didn't go get Corey Seager. You haven't been really active before this big moment. But I think it's I don't know if it's apple to apples or if it's apple oranges, if it's just a different food in its own. But when you have the John Lester signing, and then you have this signing, you compare them. John Lester obviously being a Hall of Fame type caliber pitcher that has won World Series before he came to Chicago. Definitely, it sparked the rebuild in the early, 2010, 2011. But for this kind of move, I think it's more just kind of showing the fandom, showing the season ticket holders, kind of just putting out the optics of we may not be spending Dodgers money, Yankees money, in this case, Texas Rangers money, but we're going to spend the money, like Jed said, smartly. And we're going to spend it where we think we can. Javier Baez signing with Detroit. I know a lot of Chicago Cub fans were hoping to see a reunion of some sort with some of these Cubs that had been traded away during the 2021 season coming back. I think that's pretty much done. I think Chris Bryant's going to end up somewhere in like Seattle, Philadelphia, somewhere like that, maybe even LA. And I think Rizzo is going to end up somewhere in the East Coast. So, and what we saw with Javi going to Detroit, I think this is the type of move that really does signify the next change, the next flip in Cubs history. Now let's also kind of take it this way. Let's go a little sneaky. Let's go a little covert, if you will. Let's say the front office, let's say the Ricketts, let's say management knows that they're only going to be so competitive. They only want to spend so much money because you do have to spend some money, right? Like as nice of a deal as this is, as big of a money as it is for any other human, this isn't $300 million for 7 years. This isn't $200 million for 3 years. This is a very manageable contract, right? Almost as if your team isn't competitive, isn't that good, you could flip him and get a lot back in a haul. And the fact that the contract is both friendly for a team for it being 3 years, but also player friendly with that option, there is a lot of breadcrumbs again, drawing the lines on the dots and building the puzzle because you can see what can happen here, all the different avenues they're going on. I think it's a move to be excited for. I think there is a lot of positives from it just as a pure talent on the field. We also, I think, tend to get a little too excited, not about the talents, not about the fact that they did get a nice pitcher, somebody who is going to be a legitimate second person in your rotation, right? At times, probably going to be first, depending on what else you do. But the ownership had to spend money. Like, let's also not give them all the credit in the world. They had to do this. They had to do something. And they couldn't cry poor. They couldn't go through the entire PR nightmare that they've been going through and then not do anything at all. Put on a worse team than last year's team. I like the from this move. And with the uncertainty of what's going to happen with this new CBA, whenever it happens, I am at least content right now that they did something. That for whether it's days, weeks, or months, without an official CBA, without any baseball officially happening, without spring training, winter meetings, whatever the case may be, right? That at least we're not going to have to spend weeks, months, days, whatever that amount is, saying they didn't do anything. What's going on? It just kind of being up in the air. They made a move. How great, how bad, whatever the outcome is, that those are future problems. But right now, they needed to do something for optics. They needed to do something for morale. And they needed to do something for the roster. And they did it. And it's a player that I don't think is going to blow the roof out of anybody's expectations or but it's going to get them excited. It's kind of what the Chicago Bulls did locally throughout the last few off seasons. It's a pro player. It's a respectable pro player. That's all you ask for. From going to the car wash or a restaurant to Major League Baseball teams or Fortune 500 companies. You want competency. You want to see that somebody's trying to put the proper effort out there and that the right talent's out there. And that's what's happening right now. Now, the White Sox, again, it's staying in Chicago. That's something we're going to have to keep our eye on, what Jerry Reinsdorfer is going to do. The White Sox are a piece here or their way, a second baseman, an outfielder, a starting pitcher. Literally, that's those three things. And I'm not saying you needed Max Scherzer, but you should have been in that conversation. And I don't just mean to pander to your fan base. You should be in every single one of these legit conversations for a star that's going to put you over. It's funny how these two teams are trying to get to the same destination, which is competitive and try to win championships. And they've swapped positions of one team is just a player or two away, and they got to make the right gamble. The White Sox refuse to trade anybody from the Major League club. And that's a problem, other than Nick Madrigal. They don't want to get rid of Vaughn. Like you can see that they're going to have a hard time if they're not willing to let go of any of their guys. But what the Cubs did now was start this process. Whether Marcus Stroman is on the next great Cubs team, that's a different conversation. But he is now part of a piece of that machine. Whether he's getting the last out of Game 7 of the World Series, or he's part of a trade that brings in the shortstop that hits the world home run to win the World Series. That's what they just did. And whether you win 10 more games or you lose an extra 10 games, you're not winning the NL Central, all things being on the table, being equal, being objective as of right now when there's not even a CBA. But you're better off now than you were yesterday, and you're going to be better off 5 years from now, 3 years from now. It has begun. You know, they talked about they don't want to call it a rebuild, to retool. Whatever it is finally starting. And this is the first real legit move that you've seen. They made a few nice moves. They've gotten some pieces. They've drafted some pieces. But this is a major league talent that's young enough, that does enough things that the contract's not going to hurt you. This guy's not going to throw out his arm throwing 110 miles an hour. Now, freak injuries happen, but this is a smart investment. And if you're a White Sox fan, seeing what the Cubs did, it should frustrate you a little bit. Because you're seeing what Detroit is doing. You're seeing what the rest of Major League Baseball is doing, knowing that you're not going to be able to do anything for the next few weeks, days, or months. So this is a very, very interesting way to end the night. And we still have a couple hours away before the deadline starts for the lockage. But if you're a Cub fan, if you're a fan of the North Side, if you visit Wrigley Field, if you're just interested in baseball, the Cubs making this move has now started whatever the next process is of the Cubs being the next quote-unquote great Cubs team. However that pans out, who knows, right? Sports are crazy. We just saw the Braves win the World Series. But I really like this move. It's exciting. It's exciting. And now you don't have to live with the frustration of the Cubs being inactive the entire free agency period with all these other teams were making these huge deals and then having to live through this lockage, through this lockout. You don't have to deal with that now. Now you have a respectable, professional starting pitcher to add to your rotation that has an Albert Alzolay and a Kyle Hendricks, and they picked somebody else up. I'm spacing on his name, but again, we'll be able to be more in depth with this coming up Sunday on the Sports Cubicle on WCPT 8:20 a.m., 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Dan Marver, Devin Tingle, Parshavari, and myself will be all over this. We'll be all over the lockout, and to see if by the time this recording's over, the few hours that's left in this night, if the White Sox get in on the action. But I want to know your thoughts. What did you think? Marcus Stroman is now a Chicago Cub, and you can now head into this lockout with a little bit of an exhale if you're a Cub fan. But if you're a White Sox fan, your eyebrows are a little bit raised because you're going to want to see what Jerry Reinsdorf and the Southsiders do. But let me know your thoughts. What do you think about the new Chicago Cub, a 3-year deal? The Cubs sign Marcus Stroman as we get close to the lockout period. Let me know your thoughts on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk and at Sports Cubicle TV. I'm on Twitter at Mike and Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. Like, rate, review, and share us wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. Check out the video version of the podcast on youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Please like us and subscribe to us. Hit that little bell to be notified every single time we upload a brand new episode. Check us out at ROKU at the Rewind Sports 60. Shout out to Jerry Rios. Enjoy all the games. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.